بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. More individuals than ever are living in cities, whereas they were about 10% of the population in the beginning of the 20th century. The number has developed to more than 50% nowadays. And by the conclusion of this century, people living in cities will rise dramatically. As our cities develop, so do the challenges, social pressures, traffic, contamination, and cities might even have to offer numerous benefits nowadays, like energies and infrastructure. While savvy cities in a combination of the urban distinctive systems that can impact citizens in their lifestyle and interface them through all the information and network. Today, we'll be talking about the building cities of tomorrow through transport and telecommunication innovation. Now, I would like to introduce our panelist, Mr. Abdullah Saif Slaiti, Chief of Service Delivery for Qatar Rail, Dr. Mohammed Evren Tuk, Associate Professor and Program Coordinator from the Master's Program at the Islamic Global Affairs at the College of Islamic Studies. And finally, Mrs. Fatima Sultan Kuwari, Chief Consumer at Ooredoo. And today, we'd like to discuss the topics with these various cognitive, social, economic, and loads about. And we'll start with a question for all our speakers, of course. Okay, communication and transport innovation have shaped the communities for decades. Which innovation do you believe has been the most impactful in the modern age? We'll start with Mr. Abdullah.
First of all, thank you for allowing me to participate in these great panels and to share our knowledge among each other. Thank you very much for allowing this opportunity. I would say for a short answer, for now, it is the smartphone. Although it hasn't been developed all of its potential in the field of the transportations, but it is clearly onward on the future potential change, I would say. Focusing in our field within the transport sectors, the smart technology always is a crucial element to the entire activity, I would say. Especially when it is come to a smartphone or a communication control system which create real revolutions that is less feasible, however, but at least it's big, it's large and tangible, I would say. Previously, the most challenges that we have in the transport sector or in the public transport sectors, that the customer or the user, they have to wait for a long time and the long walking distance to the public transport facilities or stops. Without reducing the frequency, I would say the waiting can be reduced because now we are having lots of smart services and technology that able to tell the customer when the trains or the buses or the services is arriving at the dedicated spot or stations. Also information about the locations of the train and vehicle, the status of this, and a lot of information can be provided on basis. Through different means, I would say. Also from operations, we have adapted, for example, in Qatar Rail and metro services, one of the latest technology, the driverless system, which is using this high technique solution. The ordinary trains used to be run by a driver, manual, and this technology is reduced and eliminate all of the risk associated with this operation, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Abdullah. And we'll go next to Ms. Fatima.
Thank you very much for having me today. I'm really happy to be part of this exciting discussion. Looking at the innovations, I think if one accepts the idea of moving from industrial to post-industrial society, or at least the shift in balance between manufacturing to services, then the rise, I think, of the computer played a real pivotal role in shaping the communities. I think one thing to remember is that more than any time in history, the generation of handheld devices puts a powerful computer in each individual's hand. And I think from here, backed with the right network connections, the expansion of the human potential can only increase. Of course, when we talk about the effect it has on communities, wearing my Uridu hat here, I think there are many benefits that we can discuss that comes with the services that are offered and the innovations around the services. However, of course, there are additional voices or several voices that suggest these technologies also can become a source of problem in certain areas. I think the real answer here is to have the right balance and not to focus a lot on the stuff or the gadgetry themselves, because we then may perhaps risk losing sight of the actual sense of communities. And I think stronger communities will always find a way to make the most out of any innovation and make the most out of all the opportunities that are presented with the new technologies as we progress. And in the process, I think become more resilient and stronger themselves. As we always say, citizens make cities.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Fatma. And Dr. Evren Tuk, if you can give us that part of the academic experience you have.
Thank you so much. This is really an amazing opportunity to be really with my amazing colleagues actually here. And of course, I would like to iterate their perspectives. They have really highlighted the important innovations. But wearing my hat as the Assistant Dean of Innovation and Community Development, and also my focus on maker spaces, I would like to highlight the role of the idea, the concept of maker spaces as an innovation that leads many innovations. So to me, especially looking into this from a more educational perspective, maker spaces have been really instrumental in cultivating and fostering more and more innovation, especially at educational institutions. Of course, with very concrete implications on the private sector and also the governmental sector as well. Maybe some of the colleagues, some of the audience may not know Makerspace. It's a physical location where people gather to share resources, knowledge, work on projects, network, and build. So they propose their own solutions in co-working areas, and sometimes we call them fabrication labs, sometimes hacker spaces, sometimes micro factories. In my courses, in my programs, I often use pulse labs or innovation labs. So these are the places where entrepreneurs, in a sustainable way, innovators, potentially with diverse motives and backgrounds, can meet, interact, and create synergies. And they cross-pollinate ideas. And these ideas allow for ideation, prototyping, and experimenting, where even failing might be part of the process. And this is the part I want to make the connection to smart cities, or the cities that we want to see in the future, because through the cities becoming more and more smart, we are doing extremely high levels of investment on smart cities. We should be able to benefit from open data, open sources, open platforms, open knowledge, and smart cities offer these opportunities that are highly technologically intensive. And maker spaces within smart cities can bring participants together. It can create a more participatory approach. And as my colleague just mentioned, I like the word citizen, but with a CITY. So members of the city are the citizens. They can build their own city through maker spaces as a form of innovation.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And if you could just send another question up to Uridu. Besides the great speed, what's the added value that the fifth generation technology will provide in communication to drive innovation in the state of Qatar, especially in the sector of small to medium-sized enterprises? And we have seen the importance of digital transformation and the mindset of the pandemic. How can the entrepreneur who is following us now benefit? What does this technology have to offer?
Thank you very much. A very interesting question. I think when we talk about the 5G technologies and what they promise, one use case we can talk about is the efficiencies and the savings. A use case that we can talk about is fleet management, for example. The Internet of Things lets businesses, know where their vehicles are, what is the best route to take, and where they need to be. With the 5G technologies and the ability that it provides for individuals and entrepreneurs and business owners to kind of slice the big data and really have a grasp at what's happening, rather than having to kind of catch up and do the approximation and the post calculation, both from a different perspective into utilizing that technology. if we talk about the other perspective as well, the powerful changes that are just symptomatic of the wider trajectory that we have in the state of Qatar. Under the wise direction we have in the Qatar National Vision 2030. I think small and medium companies and businesses can play a really pivotal role in this. Not only in speeding up work processes, allowing them to concentrate on their own unique selling points. We can talk about this, further and go on all the benefits of 5G. Speaking specifically on the pandemic and the speeding up of the digital transformation, we've all seen that technologies are very important in the era of pandemic. And despite the 5G situation and within the crisis, we've seen the progress continues with a robust pace in terms of deployment subscribers. We can see that it is a resilient technology that as we roll out, it actually continued in a safe and socially distant manner. Of course, while we didn't prefer to deal with the pandemic and these conditions, the lesson learned here is that we see how networks has helped us actually steer the course of the pandemic and keep families connected, keep businesses running, online education, working from home, and strengthening the connections between people using the technology. Not only that, but of course, when we talk about the side effects or the negativities of the pandemic, there has been some delay when we talk about the 5G standards and the 3GPP release, 16 and 17, by about 3 months. But this did not delay the operators from progressing in most parts of the world. I think, how can entrepreneurs, the last question you asked, and benefit and how this technology specifically addresses their needs. Perhaps I think the 5G deployment and the 5G network deployment would transit towards 5G standalone networks as we close kind of 2020 and move into 2021. I think in particular enterprises need to focus on their business models. I think it is very clear that for individual entrepreneurs there are should be 2 or 3 main types of opportunities here. On one hand, I think assessing how their existing provision and delivery can be improved using these technologies change within the pandemic situation. And a common area here is online fraud, for example. The scale and the sophistication of the future cyber attacks could well prove beyond the expertise of an individual company. And I think as an operator, for example, in Ooredoo, security as a service steps in, for example, to kind of level the playing field for business owners with fraudsters. Initiatives such as this free up, I think, the entrepreneur to concentrate on what really matters for a business owner, and perhaps finding unique applications of their own skill set that fits within the 5G economy.
Fatma, if I can just add to that question, when you talked about pandemics, how do you think entrepreneurs can capitalize on those hard times? Because they'll need to act quickly.
Definitely, I think I'm very close to the startup and small and medium businesses ecosystem and here in Qatar, and the pandemic has really shown great opportunities for people who have seen the gap within the marketplace and filled this. And the winners in the awards that Rawad announced a couple of days ago showed that people really took advantage and seen the opportunity in this pandemic and the situation, and really transformed, utilizing technology to take their business to the next level. And I think that's always a skill set that entrepreneurs should have, is seizing opportunities within even the worst situation and seeing how can we make the most out of it.
And if I could just jump to Abdullah, and Mr. Abdullah, if I can ask you, when when we talk about capitalizing in these moments, the World Cup is coming. And we're sure that transportation will be at one of the finest times in Qatar. How could these SMEs capitalize in the rail systems? What kind of products do you think they could use, or services that can help you guys out?
I think regarding the World Cup, there is no secret that the FIFA World Cup will require very efficient, reliable public transport systems. And we are planning to contribute or to transport around 30% of all stadium-related traffic, plus the traffic from visitors that just don't visit the match, but also they want to do some sightseeing around the city. We are estimated up to 300,000 additional trips per metro on the busy day of the World Cup. However, currently there is nothing new for us. We know the World Cup is coming. There is lots of arrangement has been already implemented from Qatar Rail side, taking into considerations starting from our design perspective. When we are designing the network, we take into considerations that to cover all the stadiums. All the stadiums. We consider in our design that to have very sufficient and wide underpasses. We equipped our station with the latest AFC or automatic fare collection gates that will make a seamless, movement or transfer among our stations. As well as there is lots of ongoing projects that related to the ticketing systems, how to have a good customer experience that's away from all the hassles and all of this stress around transporting when you're using the public transport system.
Perfect. Dr. Aventok, if I could also throw this at you, how could these SMEs compete against giants in the roads? Let's say that it gets incubated by Ooredoo. Later on, it goes and implements these products for a rail. How do you think they could actually compete against the world's giants?
They can compete in a variety of different ways. I believe one of the most important dimensions is they have to keep disrupting the traditional ways of doing things. So disruption, especially through different educational modalities, the entrepreneurs and innovators and future inventors, they have to be cognizant with the ways of theories of change and how actually they can customize and localize what they do. But of course, this doesn't mean that they shouldn't actually change their horizons. I mentioned in the previous comment, in the first question about the maker communities and how important they are. So they can actually reach out through open sources, the knowledge and design that is developed and shared at a global level through global digital commons, but they can customize them. So imagine actually you want to import manufacturing. You don't have to really do the whole transportation, but through maker spaces, you can produce it here as long as you have the blueprint for it through digital commons. So maybe this is one example, but other examples can also be used, like artificial intelligence that can be used for social purposes. So my point here is maybe it is actually one of the reasons that I am more into social innovation. My suggestion to entrepreneurs and for innovators to compete with the global ones, giants, is to get the ownership, to get the full support of their communities. So they have to showcase and validate their high connection and organic relationship with their own communities. And after that, I believe with that empowerment, their global horizon will be strengthened.
Yeah, Doctor, if I could just add to that, when you talked about empowerment, do you think they could really play a supporting role in the national economy here in Qatar?
Of course, because here we are already seeing actually the makers, the maker community in so many different ways. As you know, this originally started in MIT, the whole fabrication labs, but now in Qatar we have 7 different fabrication labs. Cubic is, of course, with the support of Qatar Development Bank, is one of them. But other than that, we have other studios. And these actually, and you can see Qatar Scientific Club has been doing amazing work in the pandemic era, and they are supporting the economy. But of course, there are issues pertaining to specific laws and specific policies that are supposed to actually help the makers to better support the economy. But it's not just the economic magnitude or volume of what they do. Also, we have to think of how they can disrupt policies. They can actually create more data by using coding or other instruments actually that they can support the government. So the impact of an entrepreneur or innovator is not only, I believe, about the economic impact. There are policy impact, but also there is actually disruptive entrepreneurial connections that they have to keep in mind, especially in today's world where space is actually really compressed, to use David Harvey, a famous geographer's concept. There's a time-space compression. So the entrepreneurs should actually cultivate this. So they have to open their horizons from local to the global, and this will enable them to better sell their products, not just in local markets, but also in the global markets.
Perfect. And Fatma, when Dr. Eventuk actually he talked about these programs, and I'm sure Ooredoo are doing a fantastic job with these with incubating these SMEs. Could you talk to us about some of the main programs that Ooredoo are working on with these SMEs?
Definitely. Of course, we hold our own incubation center in support of Cubic. We have the Ooredoo Digital and Beyond Incubation Center, and we've just actually finalized this week a specific innovation and hackathon relating to 5G innovations, where we announced a few winners in the future of 5G and startups relating to 5G technology specifically. Of course, being a telecom operator or a technology company, we focus more on the technological and the digital businesses and SMEs, and we kind of foster the technology depending on our needs here in the Qatari market specifically, but overall as well globally within our 10 different operations. In Cubic, for example, depending on the needs we have in each of the years of the incubation cycle, we decide on the area we want to focus on, whether in some years it was the fintech, and in other years it was security. So depending on the needs that we have in our market, we decide on the theme that fits within the incubation cycle.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Mr. Abdullah, you guys recently announced the launching of the pilot test for the Lusail tram and on the Lusail city roads. And the Lusail trams extend over the distance of 18 kilometers. And this is the culmination of the tremendous efforts that they've been made in recent years, especially in regard with the Doha Metro as well. Can you tell us more about this project? And can you tell us how this has been so impactful in the transportation scene in Qatar?
Absolutely. Let's just start with an overview about Doha Metro. Doha Metro, it is a game changer for the entire Doha. It's big transformations in transport system that people used to use taxis and buses on their private cars and metro system. Before pandemic, COVID, we have seen a tremendous demand in network, far exceeding the initial expectations. For example, talking on number, last year on the National Day, we transported more than 330,000 people. That means we have up to 30,000 people on the system at the same time. That's equivalent to 700 buses or even more than 10,000 cars. We have supported the Arabian World Cup and the Fifa Club World Cup, where we transported more than 90,000 people from various matches and stadiums. That is a small number when you look at what we will have to achieve in 2022. But for a brand new system that was launched just a few months before the events, I believe the figure was impressive. However, Doha Metro currently consists of a green line, that have 37 stations. Currently the station, we just services stations to bring the transport of the public transport closer to your area of interest. Worth to mention, these Metrolink or Metro Express services is based on the app application that basically collects all the requests from the end user and distribute them on the most efficient way the available. reducing also the waiting time for customer, minimizing vehicles. As I mentioned earlier, the smartphone is a key and the potential. Here we have like a example for a service that was just not possible without such services. Also referring to the tramway, yes, this is our second project, still not in operation yet. We started now we are performing or conducting lots of dynamic tests, and hopefully this project will go to life very soon. That will cover Lusail district.
And if I could just go back, we realize, Abdullah, that in 2022, the biggest beneficiary will be the fans. But today, who do you think are the biggest beneficiaries to the tram lines that you're working on?
The tramway is basically, this is part of the full integrated plan for Lusail district. As you know, the Lusail district, that will cover lots of retail shops, of residents, as well as it is hosting one of the biggest stadium that will contribute into the World Cups. And basically this system will be interconnected with our also metro system. So the customer or the end user, they can use both systems without going outside the network. So we will have interchanging stations between the tramway system and the metro system, and that will reflect the customer experience, will reflect into a seamless experience for the end user.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Dr. Vintuk, we realize the importance of having institutions and policies to support and protect innovation and the development in the areas of transport and communications. What are the things that you think we need to work on more in Qatar? And can Qatari entrepreneurs really work on to take advantage of the development phase?
Sure. I believe this is quite connected to the first question, which is, I believe it's critically important. Given that Qatar is a hyper-global country and a state with a very strong national vision, that vision is not only a national one, but also it really entails strong global connections. And this way, I believe there are three important layers that we have to think about if we want to empower the existing or the potential entrepreneurs and innovators to support the Qatari ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship. I believe there are three layers, and the first one is the technology enablers. And my colleague actually, Ms. Fatma, already mentioned about the importance of networks and what they do is admirable. So the first one is under the technology enablers, we have to think about data management, web services for smart cities, advanced data mining, Internet of Things, social networks, so on and so forth. So we need more of these actually areas as technology enablers, and Qatar has been doing really great in these areas. The second area is, especially that I like to think of this entire the urban level, smart city strategies. That what do we understand? What do the youth, the entrepreneurs understand from urban innovation? How can they diagnose problems of the people in terms of ICTs or transportation, and how they can solve those problems? Sometimes it's really important to start with the problem. So what kind of business models we can teach the youth, the entrepreneurs, innovators, so that they can come up with some social innovative firms. They can be caring communities. They can create smart cities and integrate the smart cities within the vision of the broader city. And more research, of course, about sustainable innovations. So these are the areas I believe we need to put more energy into. And the third level is the social awareness. How can we promote through technology and through information communication technologies or transportation or whatever we are actually servicing to the needs of the populations in our cities? How can we enhance and promote social well-being? How can we create more open access to knowledge, open governance, or linked data for smart cities? How can we better deal with inequalities and inequities actually? And of course, my colleagues mentioned about the security. So my point here is, for our innovators and entrepreneurs, they need to have a more holistic vision of the impact they can exert into the system. And as I mentioned, this depends on the three layers: technology enablers, smart city strategies, and social awareness that glues all these together.
Doctor, you have a very good point when you talk to access to knowledge. Us at the bank, we try to give three things, access to finance, access to information, and access to knowledge. How do you believe that the universities can really capitalize when they talk about access to knowledge to these entrepreneurs?
Let me give you an example, actually, from the case of Texas Austin, the one in US, actually, and how they were able to work with different stakeholders to empower people experiencing homelessness, and also the agencies who are serving these population, actually, by sharing their service needs and specific information about the homeless people. And they were able to identify artificial intelligence-based interventions. So they try to make actually the city not only a smart city, but also a good city. Maybe what the Farabi mentioned, the virtuous city, Al-Madina Al-Fadila. So this is what actually the universities should do. We should be able to create models or modalities of education, trainings, more curriculum, more experiential learning, simulations, case studies, so that the youth, the entrepreneurs, the potential innovators can better experiment with their ideas, to better being exposed to the real problems on the street, what people experience, so that through this human-centered thinking, they can better diagnose the problems and come up with solutions to cure, to remedy these problems. And the universities are really important and key areas, key spaces to make this possible. So, and of course, not just the universities. Universities is the hub with the private sector, with Ooredoo, with Qatar Rail, with all these entities. They should be able to actually collaborate more to come up with these maker communities to provide more and more public interest, public benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. When the ecosystem does work together, it's a big benefit to the local community as a whole. And in that phase, I'd like to throw this question to Fatima. Fatima, when talking about modern communications, the question of privacy and its protection always pops up, and the extent of communication, companies' ability to access data within a click of a button. How is that possible to balance between two sides? Development, yes, but while preserving the privacy of the user.
Definitely, that's a very important question, of course, that arises whenever we're talking about technology. We've mentioned earlier the growing importance of security online, and specifically for providers like Ooredoo, where we work on strengthening the privacy of our customers and their data, or their digital selves, as the jargon increasingly has been spread. The issue here is whether and how to protect the customers from companies that hold their data is an interesting question, definitely. Especially as the volume and the quality of the data lets companies, of course, make predictions regarding customer behavior and other use cases of the data that they hold. I think the solution lies is in rigorous code of ethics, where companies actually ensure they first do no harm and ensure that the data they have is privileged with them to hold. Another way, I think, to bring customers on board with the right processes and transparency, and being very open and kind of spelling out to the customers directly the benefits that holding and using the data is intended to bring to the end user. And I think with this approach, firmly followed, we hope that the sky is actually the limit, and starting actually to form a foundation of absolute trust between organizations that hold the data and the end user in that sense.
I really love the part when you talked about ethics, and us as personal users, and of course we are always afraid by clicking to yes, can we share this information? And when you talk about smart cities, I believe that Ooredoo is maybe a part of, I'd say, the hub, because you are the enablers of the 5G. In your perspective, Fatma, what do you think should really concern the end user when it comes to privacy?
See, as you rightfully say, when we talk about smart cities and the 5G and every use case that it brings, I think in KitCom last year we've seen so many use cases when it comes to smart city, to the use cases of 5G, the list is endless when you talk about smart homes, smart agriculture, smart healthcare, and many, many others. As we advance, and as of course the 5G brings the power of really processing data using AI and machine learning to utilize that data, I think the question goes back to always being transparent and being very clear. We have a very strong law here in Qatar that protects the end user privacy and data, and we follow it rigorously here in Qatar. And I think it's just there are two parts on the organization side, or people who hold the data, to make it of course follow the kind of code of ethics. Keep in mind that the first is do no harm per se. And the second, on the owner of the data as well, is to ensure they are transparent in the way that this data is supposed to be used to the end user. On the end user side of things, I think making sure the end user is also aware of what kind of data he or she is sharing, not kind of blindly saying yes to every information request by any organization, but to go through the details and understand the impact of that sharing per se. And just earlier today I was looking at certain informative videos online, and the part of the educational part to the end users was about the end user is ultimately responsible for the safety and security of the information that they have. Wherever you share, you're giving your consent before sharing that information with anyone else. So it's important to kind of understand the details of the information we're sharing, and to ensure that the organization we're working with or sharing our information with is a reputable organization, and we're very clear on how this data will be used.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Fatima. Mr. Abdullah, of course, the $1 million question, FIFA World Cup 2022 is about to come. And transportation is a very important part of the country's vision regarding the FIFA World Cup. So what are your preparations? What can entrepreneurs really take advantage of in this event and boom in the transportation cycle?
Thank you very much. As I mentioned, the World Cup, we knew this is coming. There is lots of extensive plan already been in place, and we are working closely with our colleague and Supreme Committee that is overlooking the event to ensure that our planning fit well into the bigger planning exercise required for a smooth services operation of what is the biggest sporting event on the world. Also, we ensured that we have enough trains or enough metro system that's able to carry the additional number of people that expecting during the events. We order an extra trains that's coming on the way that will enable us to transport more people when needed. These train also foreseen for future expansion as well as a legacy. It is worth to remind that this event is normally hosted in several cities, a couple of 100 kilometers apart from each other. But the different here in Qatar, this will happen all within one region. It is possible for the first time to watch 4 World Cup matches on a single day. And our metro, hopefully, inshallah, can take you to all of them. Referring to the entrepreneurial involvement, I would strongly recommend for them to approach. There is initiative by Ministry of Transport and Communication. They call it TESMO. It is a well-known program that's supporting all the initiative and as well the Supreme Committees. Both of these organizations, they are coordinate the development of the smart solutions for the event itself, and also it will be a legacy for the country for the future.
Mr. Abdullah, if I could just capitalize on one question. You talked about the FIFA World Cup being in different cities. We've seen the one in South Africa. We've seen the one in Brazil. Yes, hundreds of kilometers between two stadiums. What do you think will be the biggest factor to this success rate in it just being in one small country like Qatar?
I think the challenges is basically, I mean, the readiness. But all the necessary plan, also the contingency plan that we have to run our system continually during the match day, as well as hosting the other visitors to the country. This is the challenging point, I would say, and all the necessary plan now that we are engaging with across all the stakeholders across the country is basically to capture and to have the full readiness in order to host such multidisciplinary event on the same day.
Perfect, thank you. Dr. Aventuk, we always talk about the relationship between the academic research institution and the private sector and how each other nurtures what the other has to say. What's your opinion, the current state, about the collaboration between the educational institutions and SMEs within Qatar?
I believe there is areas that give us quite a bit of like optimism, and of course there are areas that we can still work on. Speaking of that, the collaborations actually, like if you look at different funding schemas of Qatar National Research Fund, you can see that the universities have been actually partnering with private entities, private sector, and also governmental sector to jointly conduct research. And Qatar National Research Fund has been very influential on this area. I know, for instance, from my institution, Hamad bin Khalifa University and Qatar Foundation, we have been doing a lot of collaboration with the private sector through our colleges, engineering, through public policy, and also the other areas of, like, for instance, Qatar financial centers, etc. Like we are doing a lot of collaborations with the private sector, and of course, knowledge creation is a key and integral element of collaboration. And knowledge creation is not a one direction street. Actually, it should be a co-production of knowledge. And the role of and the perspective of the private sector is critically important. In addition to it, we have been organizing innovation center and at Hamad bin Khalifa University, and through the innovation hub, we have been providing seed funding to scholars, community members, and they come up with ideas that are incubated in the future. So, in other words, as the Hamad bin Khalifa University and also Qatar Foundation, there are so many opportunities that we engage with the private sector. And of course, I would like to say, in addition to all these, some of our efforts in the College of Islamic Studies might be quite interesting in the sense that we have been organizing mechathons, and Qatar Development Bank has been one of our leading partners. And one of the interesting areas of these mechathons was to create synergies with the private sector. For instance, some SMEs in the area of waste management and upcycling or recycling, and partnering with our students, giving them almost like experiential learning type of like support and guidance, and coming up with new ideas. So we have been organizing through different ways, through trainings, through co-organizational events, and also through different sponsored research opportunities. We have been partnering with the private sector.
And Dr. Aventuk, can you also capitalize and talk more about these megatrons and these synergies between the development works that you've been working on?
Of course, in the most recent mechathon, it was called, I kept talking about the makerspace. Our makerspace was a local one, and we chose a name called Maker Majlis, which meant actually how to bring the local perspective to Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations. And in the Maker Majlis, one area was allocated to a fabrication lab. And our students, with the support of mentors, and with the strong help of one of the best actually companies actually in this area, which is also originally supported by Cubic, called Ibtikhar, we worked together to help our students to get a sensitivity training first. So what we did actually is we built an almost real refugee camp outside of our building. And Qatar Red Crescent helped us actually to build with the community hospital, with the tents and everything. So what happened is afterwards, students in 4 days, we had more than 2,000 students who tried to understand some of the problems that the refugees face in a refugee camp, from air condition to water to electricity to transportation to communications and so forth. And when they got into the building, they kind of saw a maker area, a fab lab, and they worked with their peers to come up with solutions in terms of business ideas, in terms of prototypes, in terms of ideations. And this way, actually, our Mechathon came up with some really interesting, in the final stage, with 4 projects. And one of them was about lighting systems in refugee camps. And the other one was the education of refugee kids through different ICT mechanisms, and that could be used in the camps, actually.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Fatma, I think we've witnessed here a boom in Qatar. In the last 30 years, we've seen Qatar boom and having skyscrapers everywhere. And we also witnessed a massive population boom. And to say to that, with the massive population boom, we had a massive urban boom. What are the implications of that, and what do you think the future holds?
I think the future is bright. There are always challenges, but there are always opportunities. If I focus specifically on what our colleague, Mr. Slaty from the rail mentioned earlier, which was a very interesting point, the TESMO project from the Qatar government under the Ministry of Transport and Communication, it actually holds a lot of opportunities, specifically focusing on the SME and the entrepreneurs. There is a lot of focus on 5 key areas that TESMO project is focusing on. Basically, the healthcare, environment, sport, transport, and logistics. And talking about the future and the boom in Qatar, I think these are 5 key areas that are potential areas for SMEs to focus on and plan forward towards their new businesses, or focus on opportunities within that scape. There is a study, of course, done by Deloitte Analysis under the TESMO program, focusing on all the opportunities in that landscape under these 5 key umbrella areas. And the potential is great. We're talking about roughly the investment opportunities in the market size of roughly 1.6 million US dollars. 1.6 billion US dollars in the different categories. These include, for example, IoT, cybersecurity, system integration, hardware and software maintenance and support, cloud computing, big data analytics, ERP systems, AR and VR, which are great use cases for 5G technology, for example. We're talking about IT consulting. We're talking about blockchain as well, customer application design, and artificial intelligence. So I think the future is bright, and the future is interesting for Qatar, specifically with the World Cup coming in 2022. Hopefully we will win, inshallah, the Asian Cup as well as the Asian Olympic Games in 2030. So of course, I think there is a lot of opportunities for startups and in the startup community and to be part of that ecosystem, but as well, for organizations and companies like Ooredoo or the Rail or other service providers here in Qatar, the potential is great to look at the use cases and how can we support the increasing, first of all, the growth in demand here in Qatar when it comes to visitor space and tourism in general as well.
Perfect. Abdullah, if I could ask you the same question, but in a different twist a little bit. Now we have ourselves. It's normal for someone your age, it's normal for someone my age to get access to education. People have diplomas, they have master's degrees, they have bachelor's degrees. How will the elder generation, our fathers and our mothers, how will they take this step with the rail system? How will they take this step with seeing entrepreneurs and getting their iPhones out and getting in the blockchains, etc.? How do you think they see these things?
See, I mean, always the technology is, I mean, this is like part of the culture transformations, and always to be associated at the beginning with some resistance to change or to adapt. However, we are focusing especially on the public transport system to make it seamless. Customer experience for all categories of people, either when you start child or adult or elderly as well, or for special need as well. So we are taking into consideration all of this evolving. I remember while we were in the construction phase, we are meeting with different categories with people, externals, and always people, they were not very confident about the added value for this project across the countries. And always we used to tell them the benefits and why this project will not going to be happen or success in our countries. We've been traveling abroad a lot. We're using the system overseas, and we can realize. But still, the people or the society were not realizing the full benefit until we became operational. When we became operational, when we launched the services, as I mentioned earlier, it was above the expectations. All the numbers that we have, we thought at the beginnings, the people, they will be reluctant to come and to try the services. But when they start using it, they are telling their friends, their families, their colleagues, and then we have different category of people they are using. And we have most also of our customer, they are from elderly people, and they used to take it for some area of interest like Sugwaget, like Qatar, and really it was a pleasure experience. And either we have sit with these people and they said this is really was a dream for a state of Qatar, and thanks for God we are witnessing this big transformation in our beloved state of Qatar.
Absolutely, and we're very proud of the work Rail has been doing. But you said a very key word to me. You said they weren't confident. Why do we keep always listening to this phrase? Why aren't they confident by what we have to do, Abdullah?
This is a human nature. Always when it has come to big challenges or a big project, sometimes this is like what we've been doing. It was a greenfield project that contribute like 1,000 of engineering principles, lots of complexity around and associated with this project. As a greenfield project, maybe this is where start the people, they were average for this project not to be happen or not to be commissioned. But thanks for God, this project since establishment, we have best of the engineer across the world, including our internal capabilities, our management supported by the top governments. They were providing all the necessary support for this project to make it happen. And really from this member, this is highly appreciated. All the support we've been getting from the governments, the confidence from them, and the confidence and the internal capability in the state of Qatar make this happen.
Perfect. Dr. Mohammed, I asked both Fatima and Abdullah before you because they had the lens. They went through all this journey. They saw Qatar a thing, and now Qatar is booming. But you, how do you see this from another scope? If you want me to elaborate, how do you see this from the scope of you coming and just Qatar being capitalized and booming, rather than both Abdullah and Fatima being them the capitalists that worked on Qatari entities and really worked hard to make Qatar what it is today?
It's a tough question. Before coming to Qatar, I came around 10 years ago. Before that, actually, I was in Canada, the capital of Canada, Ottawa. And it was a very small city, actually. It was but the size-wise, it was very close to Doha. But in terms of the way urban sprawl, in terms of the way city was built, and in terms of the way Canadians live, it was like a typical small-scale North American city. And of course, when you come to Qatar, you see and you start to observe the intensive forces of globalization through of course, the city center, the tall building, high-rise buildings, rising actually entrepreneurial spirit and production and focus on shifting to a knowledge-based economy. So there you see a very strong form of dynamism and social transformation that's happening. But at the same time, you are observing a very strong attachment to the local culture, the traditionalism, right? The kind of a nice balance between those actually. So what has been fascinating to me since I came to Qatar is the simultaneous coexistence of high-speed modernization, but with a strong anchor to locality and to culture, to religion, to identity. So maybe this is for me a way to summarize it. And of course, if you look at different government programs, if you look at museums, if you look at urban architecture, the way buildings are done, or schools and different forms, there is always reference to locality, local culture, the tradition. So to me, this is a nice melange of bringing together the modern and the local and the global. And so the way capitalism works in Qatar, I believe, is an exemplar, is a good practice. And that is why Qatar has been really like seen as a kind of a really strong rising country in the world.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words, Professor. And, you know, we'd like to reiterate, I believe, the bank believes, we believe that not only Ooredoo on Rail, but in Qatar, we're doing a good job looking at the future. We're very happy with what we have. We're very happy with our locals. We're very happy with Fatma. We're very happy with Abdullah. And we're also very pleased to have you as well. And first and foremost, again, I'd like to thank all our panelists for being with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd also like to thank you for tuning us with us. And please do tune in to watch our panel's discussions today and tomorrow, also added with our workshops. Thank you very much.